what are the positives that the Blues can take out of that? So obviously keeping Queensland at bay for after the send off until essentially the last 15 minutes. What are the other positives that the Blues can take out of that loss?
Yeah, well, as you said, the way they fought for that jersey, the way they fought for their coach, the way they fought for each other, is not something that New South Wales have done in any time over the last 2 years, really. To keep a full-strength Queensland side at bay, a man down, unbelievable performance. But there are other individual performances they can take out of that game and look to as positives. I thought Zach Lomax's Origin debut was just fantastic on the wing there. Mm-hmm. He got involved, did heaps of hard work out of his own end, carried the ball strongly, defended okay for the most part, all things considered. Scored that try straight after halftime with a pretty good aerial effort. That was one of the reasons I think he was picked. He's excellent under the high ball. So I think Lomax was, probably the best debutant for the Blues and, among their best couple of players. Spencer Leniu was the other one. Off the bench, his selection was questioned widely, including by me. I'll put my hand up and say I probably got that one wrong. I didn't think he was really ready for the Origin arena, but he was one of the reasons the Blues were able to stay in that game. Things were starting to look a bit average just before he came on for New South Wales. You're starting to think this might get a bit ugly. I think Queensland had just run on a couple of tries and, things were going to get away from the Blues, but he flipped the tide of the game in the middle, brought tremendous impact off the bench. And, for what it's worth, his spot is probably secure now for game 2 and 3. As I said, was Leniu in the walk-up best 17 for the majority leading into game 1? No, probably not, but is he now? Absolutely. And then Reece Robson was solid, Cam McInnes was solid. So a number of the selections that Michael Maguire made where you look at and go, gee, that's a head-scratcher, or maybe I would have gone another way. Those players fought hard and did a pretty good job. So I think there are plenty of positives to take from the Blues despite the final scoreline. And, they'll now look to Melbourne and hopefully turn things around.
Well, just on selection then, so are there any changes that you can immediately see for Game 2 when they come to Melbourne?
Yeah, well, the big one's going to be Joseph Suaalii. As we talked about at the top of the show, he's going to be missing for 4 weeks. If he takes an early guilty plea, he may fight this yet, and I think he might look for a downgrade at least back to careless, which would get him back to a 2-week ban. He's obviously not going to get off the charge completely, but I think there's a difference between careless and reckless. So he might fight it, but either way, a careless grade 3 would leave him out of Origin 2, so he's going to need to be replaced immediately. Who do the Blues go to replace Joseph Suaalii is an interesting one because there are a lot of injuries. There are a lot of players who aren't on the park at the moment. I would suggest Jesse Ramian is probably going to be the guy to come in there in the centres. Bradman Best would be your ideal, but I'm not sure he's going to be fit coming back from a hamstring injury. I think he might have been picked if he was fit anyway, Bradman Best, but again, not going to be fit. So Jesse Ramian's probably the debutant for Game 2 to come in there in the centres. The other one is in the halves. Nico Hines was... there was a reason he wasn't in our segment about the Blues positives. He was pretty ordinary last night, went missing at times. And for a halfback, where the Blues did have the ascendancy at times, you have to remember that. Yes, they were playing with 12, and yes, that makes it difficult. But there were times the Blues were on top, particularly early in that second half, and there were some really poor fifth tackle options. The kicking game shouldn't be impacted that much by having 12. It's a individual thing. Hines really went missing at times. So does he get picked again for Game 2? Obviously, Nathan Cleary is out for the series, so the Blues have got a big decision to make here. Do they roll with the combinations they've used in the camp for Origin 1, or do they bring Mitchell Moses in? Moses has played Origin before, done a pretty solid job, and has just come back from that foot injury. He'll have another 2 NRL games, I think it is, before selection for Game 2. He's only played 1 back from that foot injury to date, but it was a good performance. He took the Eels to a win. The Eels have been terrible without Moses. They looked a different team with him back on the park. So Maguire's got a big decision to make. Does he bring Moses into this side, or does he stick with Hines? Again, you don't want to ruin the week of camp you've had leading into Game 1 because all those combinations get worked on. You spend a lot of time at training and all the rest of it. And to change it for Game 2 means you go back to start from scratch. I don't think there's any doubt Jerome Luai will still be the 5'8" for Game 2. Moses is, I believe, never played alongside Jerome Luai. So you're looking at a completely new combination if you do go back there. Plus, potentially, Dylan Edwards comes back. He's been named on the reserves list for Penrith this weekend. The original fears around his injury being a 3 to 4 week thing look a little bit not correct, to be honest. Tedesco was pretty good last night, so there's a chance that he stays in the side. But if you pick Edwards originally, how do you then not recall him for game 2 if he's fit? If you suddenly look at changing your fullback and your halfback for game 2, you might as well throw the Origin 1 camp out the window and give Queensland a week and a half head start heading into game 2. Big decision to make for Maguire. I'm not sure if I'd be pulling the trigger, to be honest.
Look, there's a lot going on. It's not all doom and gloom, as you said, but, with all that being said, the big question is, can the Blues still win the series?
As a Blues fan, I'd like to hope so.
Yeah.
But they now have to win game 3 in Brisbane. I said pre-game last night, I said the Blues had to win game 1 if they were going to win this series. And frankly, you then look at it and go, they've got to win in Melbourne as well, because the Blues record in Brisbane is atrocious. The Blues do not win in Brisbane. That's just a given. It is a very, very difficult place to go and play State of Origin football. Make it a decider and it becomes nearly impossible. The record speaks for itself of this Maroons side in Queensland. What the Blues need to do is go to Melbourne and put on a show. They need to play as they did last night, but hopefully with 13 players for the whole 80 minutes rather than 12. You have a 13th player out there, they may be able to take the chocolates in Melbourne. Obviously, you go to the MCG, it's a very different dynamic to a normal rugby league field because of the big oval, and that can throw people as well. So people who have played at the MCG before take an immediate advantage, and that's where Queensland again will probably have the upper hand because Daly Cherry Evans has played there before. Can the Blues win the series? Look, yes, but it's going to take an unbelievable performance if they're going to.
Yeah, look, stranger things have happened, mate.